Hey everybody, let's get going on the public square today with our team: Rob Walgate, Dave Zanotti, Jeff Sanders, Melanie Elsey, and Alan C. Duncan, our producer at the microphone as well. And everybody is here and raring to go. So, Rob?
We are around the table today, our first broadcast with everyone around the table in the room for 2026. And in this episode of the Public Square, we want to talk about the monthly update and bring some of our shared experiences to the table. So I'm not sure if we're going to have enough time in the next 60 minutes to bring all the shared experiences we want while discussing the monthly update, Dave, but we're going to do our best and we're going to give it a try, that's for sure.
Well, we are a representative broadcast, and therefore I'm representing the 20% of Americans afflicted right now with some form of either the flu or COVID. So I do apologize for how awkward this is going to sound. But that being the case, I just can't stay off the air any longer. There are some stories that are out there that we have got to talk about. And we talked about shared experiences. We've spent a lot of time in the last several weeks through the holidays and into the beginning of the new year with people and spending a lot of time talking to people and listening. And we know that this country is messed up right now. People are upset. The news stories that have come to us in the recent weeks are deeply troubling. And they bear some very significant conversations. And so we are working on all of that right now. And we had a decision to make how to get started. So we thought we'd start this conversation, which is going to take several weeks, with a term, the term being distractions. Okay, so distractions. All right, I'm already distracted, right? We've all been distracted. C.S. Lewis was fond of talking about distractions in Screwtape Letters, and that distractions are certainly one of the devil's greatest tools against the human experience, distracting us to the point where we never have to really make the real decisions, make the real concerns. We just stay distracted. In fact, one of the things that Lewis noted about hell in the conversation in Screwtape Letters is that you could be certain that it will be noisy, because that's what distractions are, the noise that keep us from the truth. So recently, in the midst of this affliction, on the weekend of January 10th and 11th, that's in the year AD 2026, I did a most unusual thing. Based upon my affliction, I decided to return to my 8-year-old self, which when really sick beyond capacity, would turn to the couch. And somehow there was a little portable black and white television set that would get rolled up. It would get turned on and mind share would diminish. And off of 3 networks, the television would stay on until you basically fell asleep, because what else could you do? You were sick. Mm-hmm. Well, on the 10th and the 11th, I decided to play 8-year-old and watch 12 hours or so of the NFL. For 2 days, I watched the playoffs. And I got to tell you, I wish this was the kind of sickness that would you kept falling asleep and you just needed mindless noise in the room. I got to tell you, after 2 days, I came away with the most amazing thought in my brain, which is, if someone was judging America over the last 24 hours of television that I just watched, what would we know about America? Well, of course, obviously, football. But somehow in football, it seems like I'm not even sure that football doesn't exist to actually create commercials. And so when I looked at the commercials and I went back and I reviewed them over 2 days, what I saw was that if I was going to judge Americans based upon what is important to us, I would say the commercials told me what's most important to us is new cell phones, new cars, junk food, sports gambling, and drugs.
Was beer one of the commercials, or was that included in the drugs?
Barely even mentioned.
Really? Oh, wow. I'm behind the times, I guess, huh?
Yeah, they're onto much harder drugs. than good old fashioned ale, apparently.
Wow.
Well, yeah, and we're going to get to those 5 things. The interesting thing to me, Dave, is you talked about it being over a 2-day period, and that's what the NFL has tried to do is, they've spread the playoffs out over 3 days on the weekend of January 10th, 11th, and there was actually even a game on Monday night, January 12th. But interesting thing, I'm reminded of the movie that they did that referenced CTE. I'm drawing a blank on the title.
I know what you're talking
Concussion.
about.
Yep. Yeah. And
I feel like you're suffering from a little bit of it yourself.
I may
right
be,
now. Yeah.
but the line that grabbed all of our attention when they talked about the NFL and America, they said the NFL owns a day of the week, the same day the church used to own. That was the line.
Yeah,
and
that's profound.
I think you're seeing that come to fruition. Now, when you mentioned those 5 things, DZ, were they in any particular order? Did you have them, or they just all seem to be like, wow?
Endless, nonstop, over
Endless.
and over and over and over and over again.
Well, and then those commercials were broken up in the meantime by the main event, which was watching some of the finest athletes on earth.
The stuff they do week in and week out, you just can't even. People that big shouldn't be able to move that fast. It's crazy.
But we watched them slowly kill themselves with the aforementioned head trauma repeatedly. And they're just getting bigger and they're just getting faster. And it looks like the head trauma is just getting worse. It's almost like the helmet technology can't quite keep up with the fact that these guys are bigger, faster, stronger year after year. And I say this as somebody who loves the game of football, played it for 10 years. I love it, but we have to be honest about the dangers therein as well.
I don't pay attention to football, but I heard this past year that there was a 400-pound lineman. He was either a senior in college and was waiting to be drafted or already in the NFL. Do you know anything about that? And this guy had incredible speed. I'm thinking, that's like being hit by not just one, but 2 semi-trucks.
It seems it just seems counterintuitive that a 400-pound lineman would have incredible speed.
I watched the film. The guy was amazing.
Desmond Watson, I think is who you're talking about.
That's the guy, Desmond Watson, yeah.
The idea on all of this is why would anyone want to listen to us talk on the radio? Because we are literally traipsing down the sacred aisle of America's tradition and entertainment and cultic addictions and just making a mess of everything. And I apologize. Forgive me. I wasn't well that weekend. And I came away much less well because when I think about all the challenges that we face as a country and our kids face and our grandkids face, and I think about this distraction that has now become an addiction, that has now become a cult, that I will say now supersedes the Hunger Games. And I think to myself that the perpetuity of the advertisement saying you need a new phone, you need a new car, you need more junk food, you need to gamble more. And oh, don't worry, we got all the drugs you need to take care of whatever else happened to you.
Yeah, once that makes you sick, we've got the drugs to fix you.
Exactly. We got the drugs to fix you. And then, Alan, you watch the game and you watch these amazing athletes, and it's like the Hunger Games. I mean, you're watching people. Rob, we were talking about Kittle getting popping his Achilles.
Yeah.
And we all saw it. And we thought to ourselves, what a tragedy. This was going on for 2 solid days. People being carted off. And I was expecting like the little beep, beep, beeps. And then the little things with parachutes coming from the Hunger Games crowd saying, oh, get better soon, your sponsors.
Well, Kittle was on the commercial right after he was injured. When they went to break, I believe, wasn't it? When they went to break.
Next commercial.
Yeah, the very next
pizza.
commercial was George Kittle after you just saw him suffer that horrific injury. And with technology now, the cameras get up close and personal on every play, so you can see those things happen. But the interesting thing, you talk about those 5 things that they were advertising, and you know that that's not just done to a specific market, because at the football game in person, as well as watching on television, that would probably be the most diverse group of individuals that represented all of America from a race, from an income, from anything you want to do. That is the broadest group that you're going to get. You're not going to get that at church. You're not going to get that at work. You're not going to get that anywhere. That's the biggest microcosm of America and where they all are. And those are the 5 things they're talking to us about.
Speaking of demographics, then, Rob, I do, just to kind of tease the Hunger Game analogy one step further, Dave, on one hand, it proves your point even more. And on another, there's a difference. And I'll go with the difference, and then I'll end with proving your point even harder. The difference is some people... the difference is in the Hunger Games, you were forced to play in the Hunger Games. You didn't have a choice. Many of these people, it's their lifelong childhood dream to play in the NFL. It was my childhood dream to play in the NFL. So if somebody told me I'd have to pop my Achilles to play in the NFL, I'd probably play in the NFL. Now, I might not give up my brain, though. So that would be the difference. But to prove your point even more on the other side of the coin, there are some people who are coming from a socioeconomic background that this was their ticket out.
Sure.
They maybe didn't have the education that they needed to, so they were, in a sense, forced to sacrifice their body to get out. So I don't know. You can look at that a couple different ways, I think.
Well, that's a powerful question. There's a lot of questions there. Let me say this. One thing we know for certain, with not meaning any disrespect to the athletes or the owners or the league, people have the right to do what they want to do, and advertisers have the right to advertise what they want to. My question is, what about all the rest of us? Are we living such distracted lives that the reason our country is in the trouble that we're in, if we would stop for a second and click to the news channels, away from the cult channels, what we would actually discover is who's left to govern a country that's completely distracted.
Well, you may not be feeling well, but you can sure ask the right questions, Dave. And we'll get after it here on The Public Square when we continue. In just a moment, you'll find us online, as always, at thepublicsquare.com.
We will be right back for more on The Public Square.
You help us think well on these issues, a listener of The Public Square recently wrote. We appreciate the compliment, but none of these conversations would be happening without the help of listeners just like you. Every day, good old regular people of all ages take a moment to send support to The Public Square. Giving is easy, safe, and secure. Just log on to thepublicsquare.com to find out how. Thank you for helping to spread the light of liberty across the land.
Spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the Public Square.
Well, here in the new year, it's a great thing to get into the habit of listening to The Public Square each week. And if you miss us on the radio, you can listen with our smartphone app called The Public Square. It's free of charge. You can use that and tell others about it as well. The Public Square in your app store. Free of charge, by the way. Okay, somebody get some hot tea and some honey for this guy. Dave?
So I'm only going to apologize 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 more times for my poor voice. And I am sorry.
I don't think it's that bad, Dave.
Okay.
No, it's not bad.
But here's the question. At what point are we losing our common humanity to all the distractions? At what point are we becoming so screen-dominated, so appetite-dominated, so technology-dominated, so gambling-dominated? At what point are we in the position where we can't any longer be fully human because there's no space left for a human in the midst of all those distractions? At what point are we not just being divided and conquered as products?
And I think to highlight on that, the distractions, you talked about the NFL, I joked around, you had to watch the first quarter of an NFL game on one streaming network, then you had to jump to cable for the second quarter, and then you drop to broadcast television for the third. It's everywhere, and that's what it seems like it is. You always have to know, like, where am I going? What am I doing? How do I get this? And
I've got a 15-year-old, and he wanted to watch all the games, and he was very frustrated. He's like, where's the next game? Where is it?
Well, you had a 15-year-old that wanted to do it. Now, and no offense to anyone in the age bracket that is older than 15, but finding some people that were getting frustrated that they didn't know where to turn or where to look for the next game or how to find it. So it's one giant distraction, but I think, as Dave alluded to, that seems what life is like now. Everyone's coming from everywhere to offer that being a distraction.
Well, here's Dave. You and I are working through G.K. Chesterton's book, What I Saw in America, that he wrote. I think it was published in 1922. He came to America in 21, I believe, and then again in 31. But his book is the 1922. We're dealing with kind of the full flowering of problems that he saw in our culture even back then. And he was very complimentary of the American people. He loved the American people. He recognized so many of the positive things about our country, and maybe we'll get to some more because you mentioned them a little bit in our monthly update this month. But when he went to Broadway, he was amazed by the beautiful lights and the colored signs that he saw, and he thought they looked so cool. And he thought maybe you would say things like, all men are created equal on your signs. Maybe you'd have some great patriotic phrase on your signs in your great city of New York. He's like, no, they're just advertising stuff. It was just ads.
Eat at Joe's.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. He was so disappointed. He said, all this beautiful technology for what?
Yeah, just advertising stuff people didn't need. Probably wasn't good for him. And he also saw how dedicated and maybe obsessed we were with sports, even back then in the early 20s. And he said they were like religions without gods. That's what he said about our emphasis on sports, and it was like 1920.
In the 1920s.
So January is a time for New Year's resolutions, right? Good time right now. In my life, I made a series of resolutions. I write them down in a notebook. Less screen time, more book time. And I have several books. Most of them are classics that I've never read. And I wrote it down, and I've been plowing through them. Let's see how long this lasts.
Yeah, you can do it.
The allurement of screen time is, and I'm talking about things like YouTube and certain news agencies, things like that. It's real.
Yeah,
it's a real tug. It's a real pull, and I'm trying to give it the old college try to resist that.
Yeah, because even so many of and I'm guilty about the YouTube as well, but even so much of that is pure entertainment. It's there's a lot of substance you can find on there, but you can also find a lot of stuff that's not substantive at all.
Well, while we're on YouTube and talking about the cosmic distractions, let me just talk about one. I went to YouTube and did what I've never done in my entire life. I gave them information and a credit card so I could buy a $4.95 one-day pass for the NFL games the last day of the season, because I wanted to see if Myles Garrett would win or would break the record on most sacks in a season. And I wanted to see if the Steelers would make it to the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers, because I'm an old Aaron Rodgers fan.
Yeah, we like sports around here. We do. We like sports.
So I wanted to know. So I went ahead and I did it. Plus, since I've been sick for weeks, it was kind of the same situation, just more of it. So I spent my $4.95. I thought, well, that's a pretty good deal. I got to watch 2 games. I'm out of market. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do so. And then I got to feeling guilty. I was not raised like this. It wasn't because my parents were some moral virtuosos. It's because we didn't have the options. This stuff didn't exist. And so I think, well, I better make sure I cancel this thing. And I was informed, duly informed, that if you don't cancel this, it will renew in time for next season and cost you $400. Mm-hmm. Well, that ain't going to happen because I don't watch NFL games until the end anyway. So I thought, well, I better be a good, diligent student, and just in case, I'll go ahead and cancel. So I started the process to get rid of the renewal. And between my phone and my computer and my television set, 3 hours later, I found out how to do it. I watched YouTube videos on how to cancel your YouTube subscription on YouTube. And when I went to the pages on the YouTube videos, they didn't work. Finally, I went to an obscure, completely independent source off of a search that brought me to a page from a guy named Tom. Like Tom's Things. Tom is the guy who's got the stuff.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom said, click here and here. He took me immediately through the hacks to the pages, and I was instantly done and confirmed. And I thought to myself, with a YouTube email coming back, and I thought to myself, YouTube's owned by Google, and they can't even honestly give me less than a 3-hour experience to cancel a subscription.
It always seems like it's one click to sign up, but then to get out of it is a little bit more than one click.
I begin to feel like every time I click, there's another chain that goes around me.
Every time you click, you're being watched.
The one experience I had was, I think it was the New York Times. They got you in for this $1 subscription, and then within a number of months, you're up to $35, or they keep increasing the automatic hit on your credit card. So I went in to cancel that, and all I could get was back down to my original $1 trial again to get me back in that loop again.
And this, by the way, is not like right left on the political spectrum. The Wall Street Journal can't figure out my subscription right now to save their lives. And I'm done caring about it. I mean, it's just such a mess. The point of the whole thing is, Michael Del Giorno's got a great line. It's from the movie Social Network, when they have this big fight up at Harvard because Zuckerberg has started a website, and I think it was originally called Face Smash. And so there's this big controversy between two guys who say they got it first, and then Zuckerberg. So they end up in the president's office, and they're making their case about they're creating these sites, and it's not legal, and we're going to the legal department, and we're going to sue this. And the president looks at these guys and says, so you were busy doing this when you could have been doing what?
Mm-hmm.
This is the whole story of our American experience.
I think America should take my approach to sports. Or to entertainment in general.
Yes, because Melanie and I, neither of us know who Myles Garrett is.
That's exactly
We've
right.
never heard the name before. We do not have any concept as to who that man is.
So, for example, if it's NASCAR, I'm going to walk in the last 60 seconds to see who wins. I'm not going to sit there for hours watching everyone go around the track.
I'm with you.
On a football game, if it's an important game, I'll come in the last 3 or 4 minutes of the last quarter and watch the final plays to see who actually wins. If I'm going to a movie, it's harder for me to go into a movie theater than it is to watch a recorded movie, because I will typically watch the last 10 minutes of the movie to see who's still living at the end. So I don't have to worry about them all the way through.
That shortcuts the narrative process. This is diversity of opinion on this panel because I don't co-sign any of this. I couldn't disagree more with everything being said right now. Carry on.
If I'm reading a book that's got a plot to it, and it's not just a historical narrative.
You don't skip to the end, do you?
I skip to the end.
No!
Because then it helps me. It just saves me time and mental energy all the way through.
Alan, can you imagine her reading Crime and Punishment?
Do you do this during the legislative process? Because I've never seen you skip to the end. I
can't do that in
How
in
the
reading policy,
mighty have fallen.
No.
All right, we got to go to break. We got to go to break.
Okay.
In Melanie's defense, we do read lawsuits backwards forwards with judicial rulings.
Both ways on the lawsuit.
Right. We read them from the back. So, okay, just in your defense, Melanie.
Do you eat dessert first, too?
Here we go.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, the things you learn on the Public Square, from how to read a book to how to cancel a subscription. Well, we'll get to our monthly update as we promised coming up on the Public Square. You stay with us.
We will be right back for more on the Public Square.
I'm so glad you've joined us for the Public Square today. As Rob Walgate said earlier, this is the first opportunity in the new year we've had to sit down together, so it's kind of special for us to get started here. And if you'd like to pass the word around about the Public Square, here at the beginning of the year, be a great thing to do. So just share our website, thepublicsquare.com. Share with friends and neighbors that we can now be heard on YouTube. No subscription required. And of course, you can use our smartphone app, The Public Square. Lots of ways to listen, but let's get right back to the conversation today here and the monthly update. Here's the team once again.
I'm holding a copy of the January update in my hand, and the heading on it is the most exciting meeting of the year. And Dave, in this, you write how our first staff meeting of 2026, what we discuss, what we're going to be doing, the things that are on our plate. And there are 4 things that are listed below. The celebration of Declaration 250 on July 4th, launching policy initiatives on depopulation, immigration reform, and school choice, iVoters.com in the 2026 elections in all 50 states, Christmas in America, 2026 in a whole new light. Now, each one of those could be its own TPS broadcast. So I'm interested to see how we're going to get all 4 of them in the next 3 segments.
Each one of them could be their own independent budget. Each one of them could be their own independent companies. So first thing is, wow, that's a lot of work. It sure is. And that's exciting. What a great opportunity to always have your reach higher than your grasp, to always be reaching for more. And that's what we do here. This is a nonprofit work. It's a beautiful situation. And we have an unfair advantage. And our unfair advantage is this. Our goal is not to make money. Therefore, we don't have to answer to shareholders. We don't have to answer to political consulting firms. We answer to the Word of God, to each other as a staff assembled, and to our trustees who hold basically the history of what God's been doing in our lives together for the last 45 years.
So we don't get you into a subscription model and then continue to up the price. We do not do that.
We do not do that. But for those that want a model that's free of charge and you want to get a copy of the monthly update that I just referenced, just visit aproundtable.org. You can let us know you want a copy of the monthly update. We'll send it to you via email. We can send a hard copy to your home address. You let us know how you want it.
Free. And even if we double the price, it'll still be free.
Mm-hmm. Pick up the phone and call us, 1-800-522-VOTE. Human to human. Now, you may get a voice machine that then responds to you, but you don't even have to go online. Why? Because the monthly update is fully human. It's written fully by humans for humans. No IA or AI.
IA. Yeah. No, that's what you said right after the first staff meeting of the new year. You said, "All right, guys, I'm going to go write the update." That was the sign off to the conversation.
Yeah,
and you were off.
So it's got to be fully human, and they've been fully human for the last 45 years. We don't hire companies to do this stuff for us. And what we're talking about is what's happening from on the ground. So we got some very exciting stuff coming up. Now, there's some policy stuff that we'll be covering all throughout the year. It's very, very exciting. Clearly, the whole idea of Christmas in America, what we just experienced is still rebounding all across the company because we learned so many things. We did our first completely in-house video project on Christmas in America. both in the recording as well as is in the production, all done in-house. And it's a beautiful piece. And you can still watch it on YouTube, and you don't have to subscribe. You can watch it there for free. Oh, there's a pattern here. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to subscribe. And we're talking about the opening of Declaration Hall in celebration of the 4th of July. I think, in spite of all the politics that we're facing, all the importance of iVoters, all that's got to happen in this coming election, I think the most important thing we can do this year, bar none, is to tell the story of the Declaration. It's the window of opportunity we're never going to have again in our lifetimes in this kind of a celebration. So we have got to tell that story. And that's really the number one priority. And it's so important to us that we've reached the place of saying, to keep this fully human going forward, we need to literally build a structure, a gathering place where we're going to be coming together for generations to come and talk about this declaration and what it means. We need to do that in real time, in real gatherings. And so we're designing a building that will basically be an interactive center that has unprecedented opportunities for education, for entertainment, for enjoyment, for rehearsals, for live events, all fully human. Celebrating what? The Declaration of Independence.
And we're going to be talking about Declaration 250 and the stories behind it on this radio broadcast throughout the year. But the one thing you do talk about in the monthly update, if people want to get their hands on it and read it, is the live event that will be taking place, where that also will be discussed and celebrated. And I know many of our friends are going to want to be there for that.
And here's the problem with that. We can't tell you too much on the radio yet. And the reason that we can't is the plans are so edgy on what we're trying to accomplish and bringing people together on that property that we've got to be very careful. We can tell you something's coming on July 4th. We can tell you that if you are getting the monthly update in your mailbox, and I hope you will get it in your mailbox now. Why would I say that? It costs us $2 to send you one every month. In other words, we're going to invest $24 that you're going to get and read and open your mail and respond. So that's why people do subscriptions. We don't. We figure if you care enough to ask for this and you want it in your hands, we'll put it there and trust that you'll find a reason to support the cost of keeping you informed. That's the way we roll. We don't ask you to pay up front. And we don't commit you to anything other than the fact we're going to stay here and keep talking here, and you're always going to be welcome here. Agree or disagree, you're always going to be welcome.
In the update, Dave, you talk about a 4th of July celebration, and then you quote, I think this may be one of Alan's favorite people to quote, but I'll go ahead and read the quote. You say, Dave, as G.K. Chesterton was fond of pointing out, America is founded upon a creed which is detailed in the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration concludes by making a commitment. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. That's from the declarations. The founders were making a commitment, right?
Well, we spend a lot of time talking about the creed, and we should, and we will. And Chesterton picked up on that for certain. It's the only country founded on a creed. But we seldom talk about the commitment that made the creed real. Without the commitment, the creed's just words. Now, they're really cool words, but they would have died on the altar if somebody hadn't become the living sacrifice that made those words real. And when you think about who did the founders commit to in this commitment, it didn't say, and we commit to God. They had already abandoned themselves to God in the Declaration 4 times. Right? They made a commitment to each other. So that means, Benjamin Franklin was making a commitment to Sam Adams. And John Adams was making a commitment to John Witherspoon. Now, what was the commitment? Well, we'll give you a couple hours a week. 10% of my income. Yeah. After my church. Yeah, I'll do this too. Yeah. Okay. No, we pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honors. What's left after that?
Powerful question. And we'll talk about the commitment the founders had with each other when we come back here in the Public Square. The team today is Rob Walgate, Dave Zanotti, Melanie Elsey, Jeff Sanders, and Alan C. Duncan. We'll be right back.
We will be right back for more on the Public Square.
If you are not receiving the monthly update on which our program is based today, you can receive it free of charge, no subscription, as Alan said earlier, and you'll find us online at thepublicsquare.com. Just ask for the monthly update. It will be mailed to you. You can receive it through our website, thepublicsquare.com. Any way we can help, we'd be glad to do so. thepublicsquare.com. Okay, back to the conversation now, starting with Melanie.
Dave, when we were talking about commitment that the founders had to each other, wouldn't it be parallel to a commitment that we have now to one another through our vote, through the votes that we cast to keep the structure and the integrity of the structure of government that we have? We can't do that. We can't, as a nation, keep that commitment if we don't vote. And yet, in so many election cycles, you only have 40% of the registered voters, not even eligible voters, but those who are registered, bother to show up. Some in the off years, it's even less than that.
I've learned from all these years on the radio, the most dangerous thing you can do in the Public Square is disagree with Melanie Elsey. But I'm going to venture it. And here's why. Voting, get out of here. That's the easy part. When I think about the commitment that I see in the Declaration of Independence, I see a mother and a school teacher challenging a governor in a state on an issue like outcome-based education, getting in her car night after night after night to go to school board meeting after school board meeting, after assembly, after public meeting, and explain why all these people who seem like they're so smart don't know what they're talking about, and winning that debate from the ground up. That's the commitment I see. I see you. I've watched you your whole life. You have, and John and your family have lived that kind of sacrifice. And I could go across our entire staff. It's kind of why that first meeting of the year is such a meaningful meeting to me, because I listen to the people around this staff talk about what they're sensing God is saying we should be doing next year. And I look at how they've backed up for a lifetime their convictions with sacrifice. They've ridden their bikes to work when their car broke down. They've come to work for weeks when there were no paychecks. They've gone to meetings when they didn't have a chance at winning, and they made the case anyhow. They've been booed. They've been driven out. They've been spit on. They've been punched on the streets. They know what it's like to go out and bear witness to the truth. And they've stood against the towers of influence, the gambling industry, the major towers of big tech, the major towers of the advertising corporations, and the giant conglomerates of American entertainment. And they've gone out and they've gone into those environments where they should have been eaten alive, and they bore witness to the truth. Did they win every time? No. But they gave everything they had. So with all due respect, Madam Den Mother, voting, that's the kids' level of the pool. That's the kiddie pool. If you can't vote, then maybe you shouldn't be in a free country. Let's talk about what it really takes. Because what it really takes is paying attention and turning off the cult commercials and recognizing that God gave us more reason to be human than to throw our humanness away with screen time on a cell phone.
Well, I think in that line too, you mentioned, Dave, in the update, the founders, I mean, they were at personal risk and they risked their fortunes. I mean, they committed their livelihood to that cause, to the words of the Declaration. And
they had everything to lose, didn't they?
Everything to lose.
Yep.
And they knew in their lifetime, they were not going to see the possibility of what America would look like. Because, I mean, here they are signing the Declaration, and the Constitution was, 11 years later? I mean, it isn't like this is, okay, we signed this Declaration, smooth sailing.
They couldn't fast forward and read the end of the story, could they?
Come on, Jeff. Yeah, could you imagine? Like, for example, okay, so let's make the movie and let's go behind the scenes. Well, here's the scenes. The Declaration was written, and oh, by the way, the complete Constitutional Convention had already taken place. They had the whole document from 1787 done. So we're going to go out, we're going to conduct a war, we're going to win a war, we're going to pass a Constitution. No. They didn't know what was going to come
They were
next.
in the story as it was going on. They had no idea what was going to happen tomorrow, just like us today.
And being chased like bandits by the British.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if the British could have gotten a hold of John Hancock and John and Sam Adams, they would have been dead.
Drawn and quartered.
Is it possible that they had it easier than they would have today? In the sense that they would not
They were
have
only
the same.
distracted by people like Herodotus.
No. I'm talking about the magnitude of the influence of the distractions that we have today. When we were talking earlier about distractions, the first verse my mind went to was in Colossians 2, where it talks about not being held captive by hollow and deceptive philosophy. We get addicted captivity through technology that they didn't have back then. So and I think in one sense, it would have been easier for them to have pledged all these things without the level of distractions that pour into our lives to keep us from understanding the importance of what they were doing. If I had lived back then.
Well, I contend that distraction has always been the devil's greatest tool. The idea that if he can get us off 1 degree and keep us off 1 degree for a lifetime, we'll miss heaven by a mile. And that distractions are, and plus on top of that, distractions have a very negative impact on what they keep us from being able to do. The draining of our capacity, as well as the draining of our ability to see. You know, the funny thing about America is the greatest threat to this country has always been success. If you study our history, it's at the times that it seemed like it couldn't get any better, that it got a whole lot worse. Look, prosperity is easy to be distracted by. It happened to ancient Israel. The Lord warned them before they even got into the land. When you get there and you forget how you got there, and you've got everything you think you ever wanted, then let me tell you what to remember.
And the thing for me when it comes to distractions is distractions make me lazy. You know, they take me off task, whether it's tasks I need to be doing here at work or tasks at home. The distractions are the things that move your eye from the ball.
At my age, the distractions make me tired.
I'm with you on that.
Well, okay, so this is where some people listening might be saying, okay, well, maybe what America needs and maybe the American church, we just need a little more persecution, you know? That's what we need. We need
for yourself, Alan.
Well, no, I'm not speaking for myself. I'm saying that is something that's often levied in conversations like this. Like, well, if this prosperity is killing you guys, well, maybe you need a little haircut,
or maybe we just need some repentance.
Yeah. So my question is, what's the answer? Yeah.
Personally, I'll take the repentance over the persecution. But sometimes God uses the persecution to bring about repentance. God's going to bring about what He's going to bring about.
Well, and I appreciate
in His own good time.
Yeah, Alan, that you're calling the question, because we talked about this during staff. This kind of conversation always takes us back to where Francis Schaeffer and Chuck Colson lived around the same question, how shall we then live? Mm-hmm. In other words, given who Jesus is, given what Jesus has done in us, for us, and calls to us to do, and he wants to do through us, how do we construct our lives in such a way that we stay on track and we stay productive? Because the opposite of being distracted is being fruitful. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to study the New Testament with any degree of seriousness, we find that fruitfulness, that's not an optional plan. That's the required plan that God has for people who are walking in faith. Mm-hmm. So how do we get there?
And we'll go a little deeper on that thought when we come back in just a moment. A few stations have to leave us at this time. If yours does, please listen to the rest of this program on our YouTube channel or at thepublicsquare.com or with our smartphone app. For the rest of you, we'll be right back with more. And welcome back to the Public Square. We're nearing the end of the program today, and so glad that you've joined us here for this conversation, an important conversation, all based on our monthly update, which you can receive at thepublicsquare.com. All right, let's get back to the conversation now. Alan, you have a follow-up.
Those last few moments of the last segment just brought to mind the Bible verse that begins this month's monthly update. Dave, you begin the monthly update with 1 Timothy 2, 1 through 4. It says, I urge then, first of all, that petitions, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings and all those in authority. And it says why? It says that we may be able to live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. This is good and pleases God our Savior, who wants all people to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. So how does God want us to live? He wants us to apparently live peaceful and quiet lives in godliness and holiness. So I don't know, that's a...
that verse makes me want to weep, because you think about the preciousness of the first calling, that we should be agents of prayer. We should be salt and light, desiring for the will of the Almighty to be done here on earth, and pleading for those in authority over us that God would save them and God would bring them in the conformity of His will and His plan. We're the only people who can do that. The rocks aren't going to cry out. The mountains aren't going to cry out. Unbelievers aren't. This is our job to pray. And somebody said to me the other day, how many years have you been going to churches? I said, my whole life. He said, have you gotten them to pray for those in authority over them yet? I said, well, thankfully, it's not my job. My job is to bear witness and to trust Christ for the answers. But how are we doing on that? Honestly, I hear a lot more talk about football in church than I do about praying for people in authority over us.
Well, speaking about praying for people in authority over us, I mean, one of the four things you listed was iVoters.com and the 2026 election in all 50 states. I mean, this is a year where, we have primaries coming up. State primaries will start, I believe there's a few states that are having them in March, and then they'll go in May and throughout the summer, and obviously culminating in November with the general election in all 50 states, voting for a new House of Representatives to go to Washington, D.C., voting for many gubernatorial, 34, I believe, U.S. Senate, might be 35, Melanie, I'm looking at you, might be 34 or 35 U.S. Senate races will be on the ballot across the country. So many important decisions will be made in all 50 states for people, not to mention township trustee, county commissioner, local officials that make decisions that impact us each and every day. We should be praying for those folks daily.
Well, and that's you just hit on it. They make decisions that impact all of us daily. And that's what the scripture says, why we're supposed to pray for them, so that we can live in peace and other people can hear about God and become saved. That's why he says to do it.
But praying for them doesn't start when they serve. We can be praying now for those who would be called to even step into the election cycle.
Sure.
Yeah.
At all levels, from the local school board all the way up to the top.
Including praying for yourself as to whether or not you should run. Right? Yeah, that's a dangerous prayer, isn't it? Lord, do you want me to run?
Well, and I can tell you that if he does, usually what we've experienced is he says, don't start too big.
Yeah.
Start by serving. Where do you feel called to serve? Do you feel called to serve as a township trustee or as a city council member or as a school board member or in the state legislature? And then, of course, the next thing people say, well, gee, I don't know. I'm not a part of a party, so I got to go ask for permission. Wrong answer. No, what we need are free agents that are willing to go and serve and do the right thing. And that whole concept of learning how to do the right thing the right way is going to be a theme that comes back over and over and over again. We've got some big issues. We've got some things that right now are driving people crazy. I can't tell you how many people in the last 6 months I've talked to who said, I don't feel like I belong in this country anymore. And they're not all old. Some of them are young souls.
And some folks that are saying that, are they saying that because of the distractions? And what I mean by that is because we've allowed social media and the things that we see on our phone to take things out of proportion in some instances and make them bigger than they actually are.
Yeah, I do think people fight on social media in a way they would not in a room with another human being.
Yep, because it's not fully human.
Right.
We don't really feel that way about people, but we feel that way. And so we take it out on people.
Yeah, and we as it's always interesting to me because we as adults, and I say we, meaning the entire country, don't seem to be mature enough to handle those discussions on social media. Then we're shocked and appalled when our children get phones and start to make bad choices on social media or in other ways. And we're like, oh, yeah, that's surprising because we don't do those things.
All right, Rob, let's take right now and read that passage that we thought about in staff together along that line about what the distractions end up doing to us.
Galatians 5:13 through 15. You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. If you bite and devour each other, watch out, or you will be destroyed by each other.
If you don't love your neighbor as you love yourself, watch out. You'll bite and devour each other. There's a process here. There is an answer here. How shall we then live? In humility, in surrender to God, in love of neighbor. There is a remedy for all this, and it's not in Washington, D.C. It's not at the state capitol. It's not at who's going to be the next president or who is the current president. Those are not the answers. Those are the distractions. It's the life of service that fixes the problems at the bottom and births fruitfulness of love and joy that creates civil society. It happens from the bottom up. It always has. It's the wonder of what the American Declaration of Independence started. But it could only be worked out with people who were willing to be committed to do the right thing for each other and even for their enemies the right way.
And for those that heard us discuss iVoters, for those that heard us talk about the elections happening in all 50 states, if we truly love our neighbor, don't we care who serves in civil authority over our neighbor? There's many Christians that say, you know what, politics is dirty. I'm not going to be involved. I'm going to get away. I don't even need to vote. What difference do I make?
It's dirty because you're not praying.
If you love your neighbor, you care who serves over your neighbor in elected office.
Yeah, and we insult God when we say that because the right of civil government is what God gave us in the Garden of Eden. So I'm not going to head back to him and say, this is dirty. I mean, who made it dirty? Mm-hmm. He makes it all new. And this is a window and invitation. So I would suggest on how shall we then live? One thought: be fully human. Now that means it gets messy in a hurry. But if you don't mind hanging around with people that are willing to walk around a lot of mess and walk through it, get on to the monthly update mailing list. Just join up, free. Get it in your inbox. Hang around the public square. Walk with us as we try to figure this out. Because maybe, just maybe, by the grace of God, we'll make some progress in 2026.
One little way that we try to retain our humanity in our family when we're watching a sporting event, really any show, we just mute the commercials and try to have a conversation amongst ourselves about what we're watching instead of listening to the commercials.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dunk, you get the $1 raise. You solve the big 5 distraction problem. Just mute the commercials. Brilliant.
Another funny thing we like to do is sometimes we voice the commercials over in our own, like we pretend like what they're saying is just something silly. And so we like to have that as a game.
We're going to do that.
That's sweet.
Yeah. All right. Well, remind me to come watch a football game at Alan's house sometimes. It does sound like fun. Okay. Hey, thanks for listening today to The Public Square. You, our friends, are so supportive. We appreciate it very much. And you can find us online at thepublicsquare.com. You'll also find us at aproundtable.org. But your support means the world to us. So we appreciate it. Now, we'll be back next week with this edition of The Public Square.
The Public Square is a broadcast service of the American Policy Roundtable.